The great mansion stood at the edge of the bustling city, its white walls glowing under the evening lights. Tall pillars stretched toward the sky like ancient guardians, and the polished floors shone so brightly they looked like still water. Anyone who stepped inside could feel its beauty, but also something else. A heaviness, a silence that felt older than the walls. As the wind blew softly through the open courtyard, the ancestral masks on the walls seemed to watch closely, their carved eyes holding stories no one dared to speak. Large paintings of the family's ancestors line the hallway, each figure painted with pride, strength, and sorrow. They appeared almost alive, as if whispering warnings only the brave could hear. Emily, the young woman of the house, walked slowly through the grand entrance. Her steps echoed sharply, but her heart felt heavier than her feet. She paused before one of the masks and touched it gently. "Grandfather," she whispered, "why does this house feel sad even when everything shines?" The mask gave no answer, yet the air around her shifted, like someone had sighed. Moments later, her uncle, Baba Thando, entered from the inner hall. His face looked calm, but his eyes carried shadows. "You feel it too," he said quietly, standing beside her. "This house may be beautiful, but beauty does not wash away secrets." Emily looked up at him. "Uncle, what secret? Why does everyone here walk as if the ground is fragile?" Baba Thando hesitated, then placed a heavy hand on her shoulder. "Child, every family has wounds. Some heal, some hide, and some live in the walls, waiting to be faced." A sudden sound echoed from upstairs, like a door closing too quickly. Both of them turned, their hearts tightening for reasons they could not name. Emily breathed in deeply. "This house scares me sometimes." "It should," Baba Thando replied softly. "A house that carries grief is never silent. It speaks even when we refuse to listen." She looked again at the glowing white walls, the shining floors, the masks filled with silent warnings. The mansion looked perfect under the city's light, yet the weight in her chest told her the truth. Something dark lived here, something hidden, something waiting. As the night wind swept through the open doors, Emily felt a shiver. She knew then that her journey inside this home would not be about comfort or riches. It would be about uncovering whatever the ancestors had left behind. And the house, for the first time, felt awake. The mansion stood boldly at the edge of the lively city, its white walls glowing like the shell of a giant spirit. Tall pillars rose high, straight as ancient baobab trees, giving the house a look of power and pride. Anyone who passed by could tell this family was wealthy, respected, and feared. Inside, the polished floors shone like mirrors, reflecting every step. The ancestral masks on the walls seemed to watch silently, each carved face holding a story older than memory. The paintings of forefathers hung proudly, their eyes fierce, their robes grand, as if reminding the living that the family's roots were deep and unbroken. Emily entered the main hall slowly. Her breath caught in her chest. "This house looks like a palace," she murmured, "but it feels like something is hiding behind the beauty." Her father, Chief Manla, appeared from behind the marble staircase. His strong face carried the weight of a man who had led people, fought battles, and buried secrets. "This home was built with pride," he said, his voice low. "Your great-grandfather believed strong walls could protect a family from trouble." Emily turned to him. "Did it work?" Manla looked around at the clean, towering structure, the shining pillars, the bright lights, the masks that never blinked. "For a time," he replied, "but even the strongest walls cannot hold back the truth forever." Emily stepped closer to one of the ancestral masks. Its carved mouth curved downward, as if warning her. "Why do they look sad?" she whispered. Manla sighed deeply. "Because the masks remember everything. Pride and mistakes. Victory and sorrow. These walls stand tall, yes, but they also hold memories that never sleep." A cold breeze drifted through the hall, even though the doors were closed. Emily shivered. "Baba, why do I feel like the house is trying to speak?" "It is," Manla said, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. A home built on old stories always speaks. The question is, are you ready to listen? Emily stared at the glowing white walls. They looked perfect, strong, untouchable. But now she knew the truth. Behind their beauty lived something deeper, something powerful, something that the ancestors themselves had locked inside. And as the hall grew still, she felt it. This house was more than a mansion. It was a guardian of secrets, waiting for the one brave enough to uncover them. The hall of the mansion was silent, yet the silence felt alive, heavy, watching, waiting. The polished marble floors shone so brightly they reflected the ceiling lights like a calm river at dawn. But beneath that shine was something else, something that felt older than the house itself. As Emily stepped forward, her sandals tapped softly against the floor. Each tap echoed through the hall as if the house were replaying steps from the past. She paused and looked down. "Why does it sound like someone is walking with me?" she whispered. Her aunt, Monandi, entered from the far corridor, hands folded in front of her. Her face carried the look of a woman who had kept many secrets locked deep in her heart. "This floor remembers," she said quietly. "Every argument, every cry, every whispered promise, every betrayal. These stones may shine, but they do not forget." Emily frowned. "Auntie, how can a floor remember?" Monandi gave a sad, knowing smile. "In this family, even the walls have ears. When people carry heavy hearts, their footsteps change. They leave stories behind, even if no one speaks of them again." Emily crouched and touched the cold marble. A strange shiver ran up her arm, not painful, but unsettling. "It feels cold," she said. "It always is," Monandi replied softly, "because truth sleeps here. Truth that nobody wants to face." For a moment, the hall seemed to breathe. The air thickened, as if old emotions were waking up. Emily could almost hear faint echoes, an angry shout, a woman weeping, a door slamming long ago. She stood quickly. "Auntie, is this house cursed?" "No," Monandi said. "But a home that carries too many secrets begins to grow heavy. It starts to hold its breath. And the people inside feel that weight, even when they pretend nothing is wrong." Emily looked around. The shining floors, the tall white pillars, the ancestral masks staring silently. "This place is beautiful," she said softly, "but it doesn't feel peaceful." Monandi nodded slowly. "Beauty can hide sorrow, child. Even a river that looks calm may hide crocodiles beneath. Remember that." Emily took another step. This time the echo felt louder, heavier. She swallowed hard. "Auntie, what happened here before I came?" Monandi's eyes drifted to the ancestral masks, as if asking them for strength. "Some stories," she said, her voice trembling, "are waiting for the right ears. When the time comes, the house will show you what it has kept hidden." Emily felt a strange pull in her chest, fear mixed with curiosity. And deep inside the floor, or perhaps inside her own heart, she felt it. Something was waking. Something that had been silent for too long. Something that would soon change everything. The carved faces on the walls seemed to watch Emily as she walked deeper into the mansion. The tall pillars and shining floors spoke of wealth, but the ancestral masks, they carried something heavier, something that felt alive. Emily slowed down, staring at a large wooden mask carved with sharp lines and deep eyes. It looked ancient, older than the house itself. The eyes were hollow, yet they seemed to follow her, as if judging her presence. "Auntie, these masks," she whispered. "Why do they feel like they're breathing?" Monandi stepped beside her, folding her hands with quiet respect. "Because they carry the spirits of those who came before us," she said. "These masks are not decorations. They are reminders of the people who built this family's name and the mistakes they made along the way." Emily's eyes widened. "Mistakes?" Monandi nodded slowly. "A family that rises too high forgets who carried the ladder. These ancestors stand here to remind us that pride can destroy a home faster than fire." She pointed to a mask carved with a frown and a cracked forehead. "This one belonged to the founder of the estate. It is said he broke an oath long ago, and the crack formed on the night he passed. When the family argues, the crack seems deeper. Emily stepped back slightly. Auntie, do the masks hear everything? They hear what people try to hide, Manandi replied softly. Secrets echo louder than spoken words. These walls know more truth than the people living here. Emily turned toward the long hallway lined with paintings. Old kings, queens, chiefs, warriors, mothers holding infants. Their eyes seemed heavy, weary, almost disappointed. Why do they look so sad? Emily asked. Because history carries pain, her aunt said. Some of these ancestors watched the family break unity. Some watched greed take root. They know the sins nobody speaks of. Their silence is not peace. It is warning. Emily felt a chill travel down her arms. Do you think they watch me too? Manandi looked at her with a steady gaze. Child, spirits don't watch the innocent with anger. They watch with curiosity. They want to know if you will heal what others damaged or repeat their mistakes. Emily swallowed, suddenly feeling the weight of the mansion pressing gently on her shoulders. The masks, the paintings, the silence. They were all telling the same story. The past had not finished speaking. Somewhere deep in the house, a faint sound echoed, like wood shifting. Emily's heart jumped. Auntie, did you hear that? Manandi nodded slowly, her eyes narrowing. Yes. The ancestors are restless tonight. Emily looked back at the masks. Their carved mouths remained still, but in the soft light, their shadows looked like they were whispering. And Emily understood something. The mansion was beautiful, but beauty meant nothing when truth was buried underneath. She took a deep breath and moved forward, unaware that the ancestors were watching her steps, as if expecting her to uncover what the family had long tried to hide. The mansion shone under the morning sun, like a palace carved from clouds. Its white walls glimmered, its tall pillars stretched proudly toward the sky, and its polished floors gleamed like still water. Anyone standing outside would think the place held nothing but peace, wealth, and success. But Emily felt something different the moment she stepped inside. The air was too still, too heavy, like a drum whose sound had been swallowed before it could echo. The silence pressed against her chest, stealing the warmth from the sunlight that entered through the tall windows. She paused at the entrance, clutching her small bag. Why does it feel sad in here? She whispered. Manandi, who had worked in the mansion for years, sighed deeply. Because, child, this house smiles at the world, but it cries behind closed doors. Emily glanced around. The ancestral masks stared down from the walls. The polished floors reflected her face, but the reflection felt distant, almost trembling. The paintings of old chiefs and queens stood proud, yet their eyes seemed burdened, as if they carried a story that no one dared to tell aloud. But it looks so perfect, Emily said softly. Manandi shook her head. Perfection is sometimes a blanket covering a wound. This house carries grief that has never been spoken, fear that has never been faced. Emily's eyes followed the long hallway. The deeper she looked, the darker it appeared, as if the shadows grew thicker with every step. What kind of fear? She asked. The kind that sits in a family's heart, Manandi replied. The kind that grows when truth is buried, when mistakes are hidden, when sorrow is locked away instead of healed. Emily shivered. She could feel it now, like the house was breathing slowly, painfully, as if every wall held a memory, as if every floorboard held footsteps of people who had argued, cried, or walked away without turning back. She took a step forward, and the sound echoed too loudly, like the mansion didn't want to wake whatever slept inside. Does the family know this heaviness is here? She asked. Manandi lowered her voice. They feel it, but they pretend they don't. Pride is a strong mask, stronger than these carved ones on the wall. Emily touched the smooth surface of a pillar. It was cold, colder than stone should be. Auntie, will I be safe here? You will, Manandi answered gently. Sometimes the people who carry pain the longest are the ones who need kindness the most. Emily breathed slowly, letting the truth settle. The mansion was beautiful, yes, but beauty could hide broken places. And somewhere within this home, Grief was waiting for someone brave enough to acknowledge it. Someone who didn't run from shadows. Someone like her. As she moved deeper into the house, a distant sound echoed, a soft thud, almost like a door closing on its own. Amelie's heart skipped. Manandi placed a hand on her shoulder. Don't worry. Houses with long histories often sigh. It's their way of releasing what the people inside refuse to speak. But Amelie sensed something else. Not just a sigh. A warning. A story waiting to unfold. The sun had barely risen over the bustling city when the great white estate stood glowing like a silent giant. Its tall pillars stretched toward the sky, and the polished floors shone like water. Beautiful ancestral masks hung on the walls, each one carved with the faces of long-gone elders who once ruled the family with wisdom and strength. But inside the mansion, the air was heavy, not with dust, but with fear, secrets, and grief. It felt as if the walls themselves remembered things the family wished to forget. Every step inside echoed softly, as though the house warned anyone who walked too loudly. The staff moved carefully, almost on their toes. Their eyes stayed lowered, their hands steady. They greeted one another in whispers, not because anyone had ordered them to, but because they all believed the spirits of the ancestors were watching. Old Mama Zuri, the head housekeeper, carried a basket of fresh linen across the hall. As she passed the largest ancestral mask, a tall wooden face with deep, carved eyes, she murmured under her breath, "Guide this house, great ones. Keep trouble far from our doors." A young cleaner named Sephu followed behind her, glancing nervously at the mask. "Mama Zuri," he whispered, "why does this house feel so cold, even when the sun is warm?" Mama Zuri paused, looked around as if someone might be listening, and said softly, "Because sorrow has walked these halls, my child. And where sorrow sleeps, spirits do not rest." Sephu swallowed hard. He had heard the stories, the nights when voices echoed in empty rooms, the shadows that moved like living things, and the strange silence that fell whenever the family gathered. As they continued their work, a sudden breeze moved through the hallway, even though no window was open. The ancestral masks rattled lightly on the wall. Sephu jumped. "Mama, did you feel that?" Mama Zuri nodded, her eyes narrowing with old wisdom. "It means the ancestors are watching closely today. Something is about to change in this house." Her words hung in the air like a warning. Outside, the noise of the busy city grew louder, but inside the mansion, time seemed to slow, waiting, watching, preparing for whatever truth was about to rise. And deep within the estate, behind closed doors, the family's old secrets continued to breathe. The great estate stood proudly on the edge of the city, its white walls shining like the shell of a sacred cowrie. Tall pillars guarded the entrance, and the polished floors reflected every beam of sunlight that managed to slip through the wide glass doors. Paintings of proud ancestors lined the hallways, and wooden masks watched with eyes that seemed to follow every movement. But despite all the beauty, a heavy silence lived inside the house, so thick it felt like an extra shadow resting on every shoulder. It was a silence made of fear, secrets, and grief. In the large living room, where the family portraits hung in golden frames, the air felt tight. Each breath came slow, like the house itself was warning everyone to tread carefully. Even the ticking clock on the wall sounded nervous. A young maid named Ao moved across the room, her step soft, her hands shaking slightly as she dusted an ancestral mask carved with deep lines. She whispered, not knowing if she spoke to her own heart or the spirits watching from the walls. "Why does this place feel like it is waiting for something or someone?" Old Cato, the groundskeeper, walked in quietly. His back was bent with age, but his eyes carried the knowledge of many years. He answered gently, "Child, houses like this remember everything. Joy, sorrow, even the lies whispered in the dark. The walls hear more than the people living inside." Ao swallowed hard. She looked at the paintings, each face proud, serious, almost judging. "Master's family, do they fear something?" she asked. Cato exhaled deeply, leaning on his walking stick. "They fear the truth. And truth, truth is like a lion. You can try to lock it away, but one day, it finds its way out. Just then, a cold breeze slipped through the room. The curtains fluttered, though no window was open. The ancestral masks gave a slight tremble on the wall, as if the spirits themselves had shivered. Ao stepped back quickly. Mama's stories were right, she whispered. The ancestors are restless. Cato nodded, his voice low. Restless spirits speak louder when a family hides pain. Their whispers sit in the air, in the food, in the very heartbeat of the home. Ao looked toward the long hallway leading to the family quarters. Do you think they know what we feel? She asked. Cato smiled sadly. My child, in a house filled with secrets, everyone knows. Even the children. Even the walls. For a moment, the whole estate seemed to sigh, a long, tired sound, as if it carried the weight of generations. Outside, the city buzzed with life. But inside, the mansion waited, watched, and listened. Something was coming. Something the family could no longer hide. The estate stood tall like a giant watching over the city, its white walls glowing under the setting sun, as if the ancestors had polished them with their own hands. The tall pillars rose like proud warriors guarding a kingdom. Inside, the polished floor shone like calm water, reflecting masks and paintings that told stories older than the land itself. But beneath all that beauty lay a weight no amount of gold could hide. In the quiet corridors, the air felt strange, thick and heavy, as though every corner carried a memory the family tried to forget. Even the lights flickered softly, like they feared to shine too bright. Madame Amara, the matriarch of the house, walked slowly through the hall, her footsteps echoing like distant drums. She paused before the largest ancestral painting, a tall man with eyes that seemed to pierce through time. She whispered, Father, if only walls could speak, maybe the truth would finally free us. Old Cato, standing nearby, lowered his head. Madam, walls do speak. You only need the courage to listen. Amara closed her eyes. A single tear slipped down her cheek, though she quickly wiped it away. Courage is easy for those who have nothing left to lose. Cato answered softly. But fear grows strongest in the homes that have the most to protect. A sudden breeze stirred, making the ancestral masks tremble slightly on the walls. Ao, standing at the far end of the hall, felt a shiver run down her spine. She murmured, This house is too beautiful to feel this sad. Cato chuckled bitterly. Child, even the brightest calabash can hold bitter water. What you see outside is not always what lives inside. The sky outside shifted to a deep orange. The estate glowed, majestic, wealthy, impossible to ignore. Yet inside, the shadows grew longer, stretching across the marble floor like old secrets reaching for the light. Ao stepped closer to the window and watched city lights flicker in the distance. People out there think this family has everything, she said. Amara sighed, her voice trembling slightly. They see gold, they don't see the chains. Cato nodded slowly. This estate is a lion with two faces. One face shows pride and power. The other hides wounds that never healed. For a moment, silence returned. Deep, heavy, almost sacred. Then the house creaked softly, as if taking a long breath. The ancestors' eyes on the walls seemed to glow with warnings only they understood. Ao whispered, It feels like the house is waiting. Amara placed a hand on her chest. It is. A story is coming, one that refuses to stay buried. The wind outside grew stronger, rustling the tall palm trees around the estate. The city buzzed with life, but the mansion stood frozen in its own world, half palace, half prison. Gold on the outside, pain on the inside. A place that carried both pride and sorrow. And somewhere within its walls, the truth waited, like a sleeping storm ready to wake.